There are some shocking realities that I've learned about our people that make this dfree ministry quite compelling. I think the most shocking is revealed in an FDIC study that came out in 2009. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation that insures bank deposits did a study on the unbanked people in America who don't have bank accounts and the underbanked people who have bank accounts but who, in spite of the fact that they have bank accounts, still use non-bank money orders, alternative financial services, check cashing facilities, payday loans, rent-to-own companies. 1 out of 5 Americans are either unbanked or underbanked. Now listen to this. African Americans, just a little more than 21% of African Americans are unbanked. No bank accounts at all. What's even worse is that 30%, over 30%, are underbanked. That means if you add the underbanked and the unbanked, the majority of black people in this country are either underbanked or unbanked, 54%. That is astounding. To think that half of our people don't have the ability to pay a bill or cash a check or participate in the economy without paying high fees. A study was done in San Antonio of people who don't have bank accounts and use these alternative financial services for their transactions. And over their lifetime, the study concluded that a family that does not use traditional banking paid $40,000 in fees to these other facilities. And so what we have in effect is that the poorer people are paying the highest fees and paying the most money to transact business. So at First Baptist in 2005, we started focusing on people's debt. And since the focus really was on getting rid of credit cards and consumer debt, paying bills on time so that your credit score can be up, and having a budget, living within your means, I just took the D's of debt, delinquency, and deficit and called it dfree. I had some experience with a project that we called dfree, which was a violence prevention program. And the concept was the same, to get people to buy into kind of movement. And so we call this dfree, no debt. That means pay as you go, no deficits, live within your means, and no delinquencies, pay your bills on time. And after 5 years, I've concluded that this is probably the most important ministry in the church other than leading people to Christ. That after helping people understand that Jesus Christ is Savior and Lord, helping people manage their finances is in fact the most significant ministry of this church. We've had families of grown people with jobs come to the church and ask the church to pay for their mother's funeral. Grown people with jobs, but no money. They have no savings account, they have no room on their credit cards, and it's a disaster. And as I've worked through all of these issues, I've come to conclude that there are 4 types of spending that require both analysis and acknowledgement. First type of spending I call compensatory spending, which people do to gain significance. There are those of us who spend money on things because we lack self-esteem, we lack a sense of significance, and we attempt to gain significance through the things that we buy. So to compensate for our lack of esteem, we spend money to gain significance. Then there is what the sociologists call conspicuous consumption. And that's where you spend money to gain status. It's when you'll spend $40 more on a shirt because the shirt has a picture of a man on a horse on it. than the shirt that doesn't have the picture, even though you can't afford the $40. And this whole idea of status seekers, Vance Packard wrote a book called Status Seekers, where we feel that driving a particular kind of car puts us in a certain social status, and we will spend money, even money that we don't have, for the purpose of gaining status. Third type of spending is what I call confused spending, which is just plain stupid, where we'll spend more money than anybody should on something that you can get for free, like water, for instance. There are people who spend $3 for a bottle of water, and you can get water for free, but because it's the thing to do. And our culture has sucked people into this compensatory, conspicuous, and confused spending, and it has, for African Americans, become absolutely devastating because we were unprepared for that. You see, we were fighting segregation and racism up until around 1970. And two things happened simultaneously. One, we were liberated from the restrictions of segregation. The second thing that happened was the consumer culture kicked in, so we not only became the first generation to ride on the front of the bus, we also became the first generation that could charge our bus ticket with a credit card. The fourth type of spending is what dfree seeks to promote, and that's careful spending. You have to spend money. You cannot exist without spending money. I was up at Pennsylvania Dutch country with the Amish, and they ride the horses and don't use electricity, but even they have to spend money. You got to feed the horse, and you've got to buy seeds for the farms. And so careful spending is spending that preserves the self. And we spend money without regard to self-interest. Now, the interesting thing about spending is that it's become so popular to spend money that it's become acceptable to be drowning in debt. And so everything from BET that promotes comedians that make jokes about being so broke that your cell phone is in your grandbaby's name, all the way to all the way to preachers who want you to believe that if you have enough faith, you can just spend the money and God will pay your bills, all the way to the president. I mean, after 9/11, George Bush came out, and George Bush said, listen, go shopping. And so shopping has become a sign of patriotism. Shopping has become a sign of faith. Shopping is a sign of upward mobility. I mean, people go shopping without money. They call it window shopping. They're not shopping for windows. They're just looking through the windows because they don't have any money. Then we have shopping therapy, where people really feel better because they've gone shopping. That's how sick the culture has become. If the church is anything, the church is an antidote to the culture. And so dfree sought to develop a strategy in response to this culture of debt, this idea that it's cool to be broke, this notion that I can spend money before I earn it, and so I'm paying last month's bills on next month's check. It's become such a pervasive culture that we have nothing to leave our children. We're not prepared for emergencies. And as a consequence, churches suffer because even when people believe in tithing, they don't have the money to tithe. And so dfree was launched here in 2005. It was our response to this culture of debt. It was designed to go after the spiritual, cultural, emotional, and psychological barriers to personal prosperity and personal financial responsibility.